So good evening, friends. Welcome. So tonight there's a talk whose title is The Sacred New Year. And we're going to hear about why we consider New Year's Eve to be tonight. It's the esoteric New Year tomorrow. So at the beginning of the year, one of the ideas is that during this period of quiet, there's an inner stillness to nature as the sun is at this southernmost position, and from about around now it begins moving north at an appreciable pace. Up until now it's been dwelling. So this period, we're entering a new portal, and the year begins, and we have 12 months to look forward to. And it's traditionally been a time when people take stock. They think about the purpose of the year that they've just led, and they think about what the coming year may bring. The world is in a difficult position, a difficult state. You know how things are, not just in this country. And the study of esoteric philosophy is the one sure way of fitting ourselves to be better navigators through that world, and to navigate skillfully through the illusion that is the physical world, the psychic world of sensations and mental pictures, ambitions, fears, and into the clear space of the spiritual world, which is really the only one of the three worlds that have any real truth and meaning. And it's the world of order, of peace, of harmony, of intelligibility. It's the only one of the three worlds that allow us to make sense of the other worlds that we live in. And there's so much nonsense in the world today that we really do need that wisdom, the ancient wisdom, which has always been there. And it's available thanks to the sacrifices of many, many people. We particularly recognize Madame Blavatsky and William Judge, but they were figureheads and not the only ones. Behind them there were great teachers, and under them were a real army of individuals, just like you and I. There are individuals who have their private lives, their family lives, but they saw something greater in life. And I'd just like to read a little quotation from an article written by HPB called 1888. Thoreau, some of you may know Thoreau, he was a French writer. Thoreau pointed out that there are artists in life, persons who can change the colour of a day and make it beautiful to those with whom they come in contact. We, or the occultists, claim that there are adepts, masters in life, who make it divine, as in all the other arts. Is it not the greatest art of all, that which affects the very atmosphere in which we live? Question mark. That is the most important question is seen at once when we remember that every person who draws the breath of life affects the mental and moral atmosphere of the world and helps to colour the day of those about him. So we're all responsible for where we are, and we can all help or hinder. And it's a free world, so we have that choice. So friends, as it's the first Sunday in the month and in the year, in fact, we're going to read the Declaration of the ULT, which is our commitment to unity, to study, and to work. The policy of this lodge is independent devotion to the cause of theosophy, without professing attachment to any theosophical organizations. It is loyal to the great founders of the theosophical movement, but does not concern itself with dissensions or differences of individual opinion. The work it has on hand and the end it keeps in view are too absorbing and too lofty to leave it the time or inclination to take part in side issues. That work and that end is the dissemination of the fundamental principles of the philosophy of theosophy and the exemplification in practice of those principles through a truer realization of the self, a profounder conviction of universal brotherhood. It holds that the unassailable basis for union among theosophists, wherever and however situated, is similarity of aim, purpose, and teaching, and therefore has neither constitution, bylaws, nor officers, the sole bond between its associates being that basis, and it aims to disseminate this idea among theosophists in the furtherance of unity. It regards as theosophists all who are engaged in the true service of humanity, without distinction of race, creed, sex, condition, or organization. And it welcomes to its association all who are in accord with its declared purposes, and who desire to fit themselves, by study and otherwise, to be the better able to help and teach others. The true theosophist belongs to no cult or sect, yet belongs to each and all. And then for those who wish to become associated with the ULT, there's a form that's signed by associates. Being in sympathy with the purposes of this lodge, as set forth in its declaration, I hereby record my desire to be enrolled as an associate. It being understood that such association calls for no obligation on my part, other than that which I myself determine. As the only obligation is a self-imposed obligation. And that's the way that we are as beings. We are, as Judge said, pure, bright, bodiless, and free. Pure, bright, bodiless, and free. So we respect that idea. So to begin, before we have the talk, we've got a short reading, and it's from page 37 of The Voice of the Silence. Up to page 40. Learn that no efforts, not the smallest, whether in the right or wrong direction, can vanish from the world of causes. Even wasted smoke remains not traceless. A harsh word uttered in past lives is not destroyed, but ever comes again. The pepper plant will not give birth to roses, nor the sweet jessamine's silver star to thorn or thistle turn. Thou canst create this day thy chances for thy morrow. In the great journey, which is the cycle of existences, causes sown each hour bear each its harvests of effects. For rigid justice rules the world, with mighty sweep of never-erring action. It brings to mortals lives of weal or woe, happiness or sadness, the karmic progeny of all our former thoughts and deeds. Take then as much as merit hath in store for thee, O thou of patient heart, Be of good cheer, and rest content with fate. Such is thy karma, the karma of the cycle of thy births, the destiny of those who, in their pain and sorrow, are born along with thee. Rejoice and weep from life to life, chained to thy previous actions. Act thou for them today, and they will act for thee tomorrow. 'Tis from the bud of renunciation of the self that springeth the sweet fruit of final liberation. To perish doomed is he who, out of fear of Mara, or temptation, refrains from helping man, lest he should act for self. The pilgrim who would cool his weary limbs in running waters, yet dares not plunge for terror of the stream, risks to succumb from heat. Inaction based on selfish fear can bear but evil fruit. The selfish devotee lives to no purpose. The man who does not go through his appointed work in life has lived in vain. Follow the wheel of life. Follow the wheel of duty to race and kin, to friend and foe, and close thy mind to pleasures as to pain. Exhaust the law of karmic retribution. Gain siddhis or virtues for thy future birth. If sun thou canst not be, then be the humble planet. Aye, if thou art debarred from flaming like the noonday sun upon the snow-capped mount of purity eternal, then choose, O neophyte disciple, a humbler course. Point out the way, however dimly and lost among the host, as does the evening star to those who tread their path in darkness. Behold Migmar, or Mars, as in his crimson veils his eye sweeps over slumbering earth. Behold the fiery aura of the hand of Legba, or Mercury, extended in protecting love over the heads of his ascetics. Both are now servants to Ninya, or the sun, left in his absence, silent watchers in the night. Yet both in past kalpas or cycles both in past kalpas past, were bright ninyas or suns, and may in future days become again two suns. Such are the rises and falls of the karmic law in nature. Be, Olanu, disciple, like them. Give light and comfort to the toiling pilgrim. Seek out him who knows still less than thou, who in his wretched desolation sits starving for the bread of wisdom, and the bread which feeds the shadow of the body. Without a teacher, hope, or consolation, and let him hear the law.
Friends, let no one imagine that it is a mere fancy, the attaching of importance to the birth of the year. These are the words of H.P. Blavatsky from her January 1888 article, which was simply titled 1888. She continued by saying, "The earth passes through its definite phases, and man with it. And as a day can be coloured, so can a year. The astral life of the earth is young and strong between Christmas and Easter. Those who form their wishes now will have added strength to fulfill them consistently." Astrologically, between Christmas and Easter means between Capricorn and Aries. And as many of you know, each of the 12 astrological or zodiacal months begins between around the 20th to the 24th of one of our calendar months. For example, the month of Capricorn, 2015, began with the winter solstice on the 21st, 22nd of December. The month of Aquarius will follow on the 21st of January, then Pisces, then Aries. The date of Easter is usually around the time of, or shortly after, the vernal equinox, which is the spring equinox. The equinox generally occurs around 21st of March, and so is in the beginning period of Aries. This brief but significant passage that we just shared from HPB is often misremembered or misquoted. Many think of it as saying that the astral light is young and strong and impressionable between Christmas and Easter, but it says astral life, the astral life of the earth. Perhaps we might really say that the astral life of the earth is young and strong between the winter solstice and the spring equinox. The phrase astral life may well relate to astral light, but the two are probably not intended to be taken as synonymous. Far from being renewed or reborn every 12 months, the astral light, which is the psychic atmosphere of our planet and the vast recording and reflecting tablet or screen of humanity's thoughts and acts, this is only refreshed and rejuvenated at the close of manvantaric cycles. This is what we read in the Secret Doctrine and elsewhere. So it's for us to think what the astral life of the earth might actually mean. The most crucial thing is to realize and remember that now, this first and opening period of a new year, is a very important and potent time, psychically and mentally, and we could also add spiritually. Last Sunday in our meeting here, we were reading and discussing Robert Crosby's article, New Year's Resolutions, and some of you were present for that. You may remember that in that article, Robert Crosby explained that unconsciously, to ourselves it may be, we have a natural perception of occult law in our observance of this particular period of the year. The ancients celebrated and understood what was called by them the birth of the sun, or the return of the sun on its northern course, beginning the 21st of December. They knew that all the occult forces in nature have an upward and increasing tendency at the return of the sun. When the sun's rays become warmer and stronger, all the other forces behind the sun itself and behind ourselves becomes stronger within us. In the rising wave of spiritual and psychic renewal, all that we desire to do has a greater impulsion than at some other time of the year. And those are words to be meditated upon, surely. HPB made an equally important statement regarding the new year in her January 1890 article titled 1890 on the New Year's Morrow. She said, to be brief, it is January the 4th, which ought to be selected by the Theosophists, the esotericists especially, as their new year. January is under the sign of Capricornus, the mysterious Makara of the Hindu mystics. The Kumaras, it being stated, having incarnated in mankind under the 10th sign of the zodiac. For ages, the 4th of January has been sacred to Mercury Buddha, or Thoth Hermes. Thus everything combines to make of it a festival to be held by those who study ancient wisdom. Thus Theosophists often speak of the 4th of January, which is tomorrow, as the esoteric New Year, or the Theosophical New Year. The word here is not Buddha, but Buddha with one D, which is not another name for Gautama Buddha, but is a different word in Sanskrit. It is the name in Hinduism for the planet which we call Mercury, and which has always represented wisdom. But let's try to delve deeper into the reference to Capricorn and the Kumaras, who, as we just heard, incarnated in mankind under the 10th sign of the zodiac, i.e. under Capricorn. This refers to one of the most central, fundamental, and frequently stated teachings of the esoteric philosophy, and it relates directly to manas, the mind principle in the human being, which principle is the human soul, the reincarnating permanent individuality or ego. The Theosophical Glossary is a very valuable source of information, and in its entry for Capricorn or Capricornus, which is called Makara in Sanskrit, HPB says that on account of its hidden meaning, it is the most important among the constellations of the mysterious zodiac. It is fully described in the Secret Doctrine, she says, and therefore needs but a few words more. Everything in nature is intimately correlated to the rest, and therefore the students of ancient law will not be too much surprised when told that even the 7 steps taken in the direction of every one of the 4 points of the compass, or 28 steps, taken by the newborn infant Buddha, are closely related to the 28 stars of the constellation of Capricornus. The Theosophical teachings tell us that the sign of Makara, or Capricorn, is connected with both the birth of the spiritual microcosm, or the real man, proper self-conscious humanity, and the death, or dissolution, of the physical macrocosm, or the manifested universe, and the passage of the manifested universe back into the realm of the unmanifested, purely spiritual. And what the trans-Himalayan esoteric Buddhists call the Dhyan Chohans, and the Hindus call the Kumaras, are connected with both. To quote from the Secret Doctrine, Volume 2, page 576, everyone knows that Capricorn is the 10th sign of the zodiac, into which the sun enters at the winter solstice, about December 21st. But very few are those who know, even in India, unless they are initiated, the real mystic connection which seems to exist, as we are told, between the names Makara and Kumara. This now brings us on to the subject of the 7 hierarchies. The Masters in HPB write in the Secret Doctrine that there are 7 hierarchies, groups or orders, within the 12 great orders of celestial beings. These are sometimes described as the celestial hierarchy, hierarchies of Dhyan Chohans, and the 7 orders of Dhyanis. One might speak of them as 7 angelic hierarchies, or hierarchies of angels, but as that term has such anthropomorphic and theological connotations, and is now being done to death in the New Age movement, we're better off sticking with these other terms, which are less likely to conjure up misleading Christian-style pictures in our imaginations. So between pages 213 and 233 of the first volume, titled Cosmogenesis of the Secret Doctrine, we are granted a glimpse into this deeply esoteric subject. It begins by saying that there are 12 great orders of spiritual beings, which are, quote, recorded in the 12 signs of the zodiac. So in some way or other, the 12 great orders are connected with and represented by the 12 zodiacal signs and constellations: Aries, Taurus, Gemini, Cancer, Leo, Virgo, Libra, Scorpio, Sagittarius, Capricorn, Aquarius and Pisces, to use the names with which we're the most familiar. 4 of those 12 have already reached liberation, completed what they have to do, and are now inactive for the whole of the duration of the remainder of the universal life cycle, or age of Brahma. This is from volume 2, page 77, which further says that the 5th is ready to reach it, but still remains active on the intellectual planes, while 7 are still under direct karmic law. These are called the 7 of the manifesting scale, the 7 which are still in operation, in activity, and engaged in some great cosmic work and function for the upliftment and evolutionary benefit of the whole. As all groups of 7 in nature correspond to one another, and has some type of connection and relation between themselves, so these 7 Dhyan Chohanic hierarchies, which are cosmic, above and beyond the planets of our solar system, they nevertheless have a connection with the 7 sacred planets in our solar system, a metaphysical correspondence with those planets, the latter serving as form of focus or ray through which the energies of those 7 hierarchies reaches us and our planet Earth. What are the 7 sacred planets? There are more than 7 planets, as we all know, but there are only 7 which have a very special and direct relation with ours. Mercury, Venus, Jupiter, Saturn, Mars, that's 5, and traditionally people have added the Sun and the Moon to make 7, but those 2 are only exoteric substitutes for 2 mystery planets, which were not permitted by the initiates and adepts to be publicly referred to and identified in days of old. The Sun is not a planet. It is the central star of our system, our solar system. The Moon is a dead planet, a decaying remnant which Theosophy says was the previous incarnation of our planet. The Moon was the exoteric substitute for what is described in Transactions of the Blavatsky Lodge as a planet with a retrograde motion, sometimes visible at a certain hour of night, and apparently near the Moon. The occult influence of this planet is transmitted by the Moon. And that's a quote from H.P. Blavatsky in Transactions. And it's also said that the Sun was the substitute for a trans-mercurial planet. In the recently published Secret Doctrine Dialogues, we find HPB telling her students that it is the planet between Mercury and the Sun. It is closer to the Sun than Mercury is, and in Victorian times it was recognized for a while under the name of Vulcan. She says it is one of the most sacred planets, adding, it was the beginning of the 4th race, and then it went off. or in other words, came to the final end of its cycle, the close of the 7th round on that globe, and that was back at the close of the Lemurian epoch and start of the Atlantean. It is in its last obscuration, she says. It will be seen from Mercury. It will be a moon when there will be some other planet produced from it. There are figures for it. They wanted to call it Vulcan. They say that they suspected. I don't know what some of them said. Others deny it. It is in its last brightness. These sacred truths had never before been revealed to the world until the Mahatma's direct agent, public representative H.P. Blavatsky, was instructed to do so. But as for the 7 hierarchies, this is what's said about them. We'll find that they correspond to a large extent with the 7 principles of the human constitution. Now this that we're going to hear over the next few minutes is from the Secret Doctrine. So number 1, it said the highest group is composed of the divine flames, so-called, also spoken of as the fiery lions, and the lions of life, that's Lions, lions, whose esotericism is securely hidden in the zodiacal sign of Leo. It is the nucleole of the superior divine world. They are the formless, fiery breaths, identical in one aspect with the upper sephirotal triad, which is placed by the Kabbalists in the archetypal world. Number 2, the second order of celestial beings, those of fire and aether, that's the A-E-T-H-E-R, fire and aether, corresponding to spirit and soul, or the Atma Buddhi, whose names are legion, are still formless, but more definitely substantial. As the name shows, they are the prototypes of the incarnating jivas or monads, and are composed of the fiery spirit of life. It is through these that passes, like a pure solar beam, the ray which is furnished by them with its future vehicle, the divine soul, Buddhi. These are directly concerned with the hosts of the higher world of our system. From these twofold units emanate the threefold. Number 3, the third order corresponds to the Atma, Buddhi, Manas, spirit, soul and intellect, and is called the triads. Number 4, the fourth are substantial entities. This is the highest group among the rupas, atomic forms. It is the nursery of the human, conscious, spiritual souls. They are called the imperishable jivas, and constitute, through the order below their own, the first group of the first septenary host, the great mystery of human, conscious, and intellectual being. Number 5, and here's what we're most interested in today, the 5th group is a very mysterious one, as it is connected with the microcosmic pentagon, the 5-pointed star representing man. In India and Egypt, these dhyanis were connected with the crocodile, and their abode is in Capricornus. These are convertible terms in Indian astrology, as this 10th sign of the zodiac is called Makara, loosely translated crocodile. The 5th group of the celestial beings is supposed to contain in itself the dual attributes of both the spiritual and physical aspects of the universe, the 2 poles, so to say, of Mahat, the universal intelligence, and the dual nature of man, the spiritual and the physical. Hence it's number 5, multiplied, i.e. by 2, and made into 10, connecting it with Makara, the 10th sign of zodiac. It becomes the task of the 5th hierarchy, the mysterious beings that preside over the constellation Capricornus, Makara, or crocodile in India as in Egypt, to inform the empty and ethereal animal form, that is, in the early period of humanity's evolution on this globe, in this fourth round, and make of it the rational man. This is one of those subjects upon which very little may be said to the general public. It is a mystery, truly, but only to him who is prepared to reject the existence of intellectual and conscious spiritual beings in the universe, limiting full consciousness to man alone, and that only as a function of the brain. Many are those among the spiritual entities who have incarnated bodily in man since the beginning of his appearance, and who, for all that, still exist as independently as they did before in the infinitudes of space. To put it more clearly, the invisible entity may be bodily present on earth, without abandoning, however, its status and functions in the supersensuous regions. Finally, numbers 6 and 7. The 6th and 7th groups partake of the lower qualities of the quaternary. They are conscious, ethereal entities, as invisible as ether. As it is the 6th on the downward scale of spirituality, the last and 7th being the terrestrial spirits, elementals, which gradually form, build, and condense his physical body. This 6th group evolves no more than the future man's shadowy form, a filmy, hardly visible, transparent copy of themselves. This 6th group, moreover, remains almost inseparable from man, who draws from it all but his highest and lowest principles, or his spirit and body, the 5 middle human principles being the very essence of those dhyanas. Alone, the divine ray, the Atman, proceeds directly from the One. At the start, we heard that the Kumaras incarnated in humanity under the sign of Makara, or Capricorn. And now we've just heard also that their abode, whatever that may mean for them, is in Capricorn, and that they are the mysterious beings who preside over the constellation of Capricorn. And we are now in the month of Capricorn, the month which is under the particular influence and energy of that constellation, or rather of the unseen hierarchy behind it. And tomorrow will be commemorated as the esoteric New Year. You want to sit down? There's no handout. What do we mean when we say that these beings incarnated in humanity and transformed animal man into rational man? Well, these Kumaras, which literally and at the same time symbolically means virgin youths, are also referred to by various other names, such as the Sons of Wisdom, Lords of the Flame, Solar Pitris, Agnishvatas, meaning the fire purified, those who have tasted the fire, and the Manasa Putras, the sons of the universal mind. In the Key to Theosophy, HPB says that their mass descent, or incarnation en masse, into the thus far mindless and actually soulless animal men of the Lemurian root race was these entities becoming our true inner spiritual individuality. We are them, they are us, our higher manas principle, a being of light, truly, but which is of such gloriously radiant purity and intensely spiritual vibration that it can only become embodied on this dense physical plane through a lower self, a persona, a personality. And our personal selves, that which the world sees, are in almost every case flawed and marred by our own karma. Yet the Manasa Putra is always perfect and omniscient on its own plane, and is an individualized ray of the universal mind. We each have our own inner God, our Father in the heavens, and it is ourselves. Not our higher self, however, which is Atma, but our higher ego, which is the higher manas, the noetic principle, the nous of ancient Greek philosophy. That's something we can go into more if anyone's interested in the questions and answers. But we'll just finish with something from The Ocean of Theosophy, written by William Q. Judge. The course of evolution developed the lower principles and produced at last the form of man with a brain of better and deeper capacity than that of any other animal. But this man in form was not man in mind, and needed the fifth principle, the thinking, perceiving one, to differentiate him from the animal kingdom and to confer the power of becoming self-conscious. The monad was imprisoned in these forms, and that monad is composed of Atma and Buddhi. For, without the presence of the monad, evolution could not go forward. Going back for a moment to the time when the races were devoid of mind, the question arises, who gave the mind? Where did it come from? And what is it? It is the link between the Spirit of God above and the personal below. It was given to the mindless monads by others who had gone all through this process ages upon ages before, in other worlds and systems of worlds, and it therefore came from other evolutionary periods, which were carried out and completed long before the solar system had begun. This is the theory, strange and unacceptable today, but which must be stated if we are to tell the truth about theosophy, and this is only handing on what others have said before. The mindless men, having four elementary principles of body, astral body, life and desire, are the unlighted candles that cannot light themselves. The sons of wisdom, who are the elder brothers of every family of men on any globe, have the light, derived by them from others who reach back and yet farther back, in endless procession with no beginning nor end. They set fire to the combined lower principles and the monad, thus lighting up manas in the new men and preparing another great race for final initiation. So let us make this new year the sacred occasion that it truly is. Myself and another student will attempt to answer any questions you may have about things that have been mentioned in the talk or anything that you may think is related to that. And those on Skype are welcome to either ask your questions vocally, or if you prefer you can type your question and they will be read out and we'll endeavour to answer them. Yes?
That was from the ocean.
Yes, the last passage I read, I can give the reference. It was page 52 to 54 of The Ocean of Theosophy by William Judge.
The previous reading?
Which one do you mean? The lengthy one about the hierarchies?
The one before the ocean.
Well, the one before that was when we were reading about the 7 hierarchies and the descriptions. That's in the Secret Doctrine, Volume 1. The whole passage about that is between pages 213 and 233 of Volume 1 of the Secret Doctrine. Yes, Chris?
You mentioned the Rakara as translated as crocodile.
Yes.
So can we say that it's given this personification because the amphibious tendencies, because it can exist in the astral world and the physical world, or
I don't know, because she says loosely translated crocodile, so I'm not sure how accurate it is. We can just see if there's anything in the...
I'm sure it doesn't refer to physically existing in water and land.
Well, in the Theosophical Glossary entry for Makara, it says Makara, Sanskrit, the crocodile. In Europe, the same as Capricorn, the 10th sign of the zodiac. Esoterically, a mystic class of devas. Those are the Manasaputras that were mentioned. With the Hindus, the vehicle of Varuna, the water god. I don't know if you wanted to mention it.
Well, regarding the amphibians, I think that's a little different point. What you said about the amphibians was quite right. Like the toad or the frog can exist on the land, on the dry land, or the water, which represents the psychic world or the spiritual world. We have to be amphibians ourselves. We have to learn to walk on the earth and swim in the sea of spirit, in that sense. So maybe that is connected with the crocodile, but I haven't seen that connection made. I don't know if anyone can help with anything on that.
You said the crocodile was a sacred animal in ancient Egypt, was it not?
Yes, and any serpent-like creature was often held as a symbol of wisdom. Didn't you have another question earlier? You put your hand up.
Well, I think, yes. Now, I think it's the Druids consider the winter solstice actually to be the most sacred time of the year. And in other traditions, it's the summer solstice. Now, this forms a cycle of the sun from its rebirth, so to speak, to its full glory. So, the concept of the sacredness of the new year is largely connected with the sun. Now, I mean, in other systems, it's the sun or the solar mysteries are essential for humanity. That there is this esoteric connection between, obviously, not just on the physical level, obviously, but an inner connection with the sun, which in ancient times they were able to actually tune into more deeply. In other cultures, particularly I think the Druids, but certainly the Egyptians, when they built all these solar temples. So
was there
this is the underlying factor of this concept of sacredness. So how should we relate to the sun in that sense? How should we bring it into our consciousness?
Well, I have was probably the best answer to that here in a quote from it's the article called Mental Discipline in the Conversations on Occultism booklet, number 2. This was published by William Judge from a conversation between himself as student and HPB as sage. And the student asks, can you mention some of the relations in which the sun stands to us and nature in respect to occultism? The sage says, it has many such and all important, but I would draw your attention first to the greater and more comprehensive. The sun is the centre of our solar system. The life energies of that system come to it through the sun, which is a focus or reflector for the spot in space where the real centre is. And not only comes mere life through that focus, but also much more that is spiritual in its essence. The sun should therefore not only be looked at with the eye, but thought of by the mind. It represents to the world what the higher self is to the man. It is the sole centre of the world, with its 6 companions, as the higher self is the centre for the 6 principles of man. So it supplies to those 6 principles of the man many spiritual essences and powers. He should for that reason think of it, and not confine himself to gazing at it. So far as it acts materially in light, heat and gravity, it will go on of itself, but man as a free agent must think upon it in order to gain what benefit can come only from his voluntary action in thought. And then the student says, will you refer to some minor one, or some minor benefit? And the sage replies, well, we sit in the sun for heat and possible chemical effects. But if at the same time that we do this, we also think on it as the sun in the sky, and of its possible essential nature, we thereby draw from it some of its energy not otherwise touched. This can also be done on a dark day, when clouds obscure the sky, and some of the benefit thus be obtained. Natural mystics, learned and ignorant, have discovered this for themselves, here and there, and have often adopted the practice. But it depends, as you see, upon the mind. So hopefully that answers. Yes?
Numerology, you referred to notes of a lot of mystical numbers, didn't you, of it?
Yes.
The number 7, that's, well, I always thought that's the most significant in esoteric philosophy, the number 7.
Yes.
Is that, could you elaborate on that anything?
Yes, number 7 is described as the factor number for this Manvantara, or universal life cycle.
Yeah.
It's the sacred number. Everything goes in groupings of 7. So we mentioned that there are 7 principles in the human constitution, which are those listed on the board there. 7 main hierarchies of Dhyan Chohans, which are connected with man. 7 sacred planets. We also have things on the more mundane level, such as 7 days of the week. 7 said that there are 7 layers of the skin, various different groups of 7, all connected and corresponding.
Yeah, well, there's something else about 7. Well, what comes after 7? 8. Now, 8 was a sacred number in many different schools. The Greeks, the Pythagoreans, they had their 8-sided cube, or 8 corners in the cube. The Chinese particularly had 8. They liked 8 very much. I was just trying to find the page. It's in one of HPB's articles on the New Year, I think it is.
Wasn't 8 the symbol for infinity?
Yes.
Because of its interconnected loops.
Yes, 8 is infinity. Now, 8 was also the number associated with justice and democracy and the
Equity.
yes, equity, yes, that's a good word. The empowering of the people. It was always feared by the rulers, the kings or the Caesars and those people, because they didn't want people to get in power. Now, 2015, if you're into numerology, adds up to 8. And it seemed to be something of that last year. Now, of course, 2016 adds up to 9. Now, 9 isn't a very easy number in occultism. It represents change. And change often is, well, painful and difficult. So I'm not making any predictions, but we perhaps can just be a little mindful about that.
It's also a very sacred number. In the Secret Doctrine, Volume 2, from the bottom of page 621 to the top of 622, there's a quote from an esoteric commentary, and it says, 7 is the sacred number of life. 9 is the sacred number of being and becoming, with being and becoming in very enlarged capital letters here. So 9 is the sacred number of being and becoming.
elsewhere it describes the number of completion of perfection. For example, there are 9 months in the pregnancy,
Yes.
human pregnancy. But going back to 7, the 7 is a lunar number as well. The cycles, biological cycles are lunar. But isn't 12 connected with the sun? Because of the 12 signs of the zodiac, the 12 months of the year, and so on, the solar year.
Mm.
Can I just add,
Yes.
there's something called the solar return. Has anyone heard of that?
Is that the perihelion?
It happens every 7 years.
Oh, okay.
And so for each person, according to their time of birth, so 0 to 7 years is significant, 14 is significant.
Mm.
And so your preparation for the next stage of that 7, so if you're 0 to 7 prepares you for the next 7 years,
Yes.
and so on. And also the blood in the human system changes every 7 years.
It's not a blood, it's erythrocyte.
Sorry?
Erythrocyte is living for 7 days.
Sorry, I can't hear you.
A cell, the last cell in human body is changing in every 7 years. In the bones.
Yes, sorry.
Mhm.
Well, if you want to put it that way, because if you're interested in palmistry, there's a thing whereby after 7 years, people ask why do their hands change. So your thoughts, what you desire and what you do, adding to this time of the year, as in when you said having New Year's resolutions, it's a preparation for it.
Yes.
So there have been studies done where the lines can change, and they can change over every 7 years,
Yes.
depending on what you will and what you desire and what you like. So that's where you have what you're born with and what's happening.
Yes. Thank you. Yes, another one of the 7s that we could have mentioned, which was just mentioned there, is that our life goes in 7-year cycles. So the masters call the 0 to 7 years old period the first septenary cycle of the being's incarnated life. And it's said by Damodar, who some of you have heard of. Damodar K. Mavalankar was the Indian chela of the Master Kutumi and a colleague of HPB in India. And he wrote that the reason why the age-old rule for chelaship, or becoming a disciple of the Masters, the reason why there's a minimum 7-year probationary period from making one's pledge and being formally accepted as a disciple by the Masters is because it takes a minimum of 7 years for the aspirant to completely change all the atoms in his body and nature to more accurately and properly reflect the higher spiritual nature. Because, as was just mentioned, the cells, the atoms, everything is changing over a 7-year period. And through the power of will and intent, one could change things so dramatically and make changes outer and inner in one's life to such an extent as to more or less recreate oneself to be a fit vehicle to be a chela. So that's something Damodar says about it. Are there any questions from Skype, written or spoken?
Well, you mentioned the perihelion. Do you want to just say a little bit about that? Because there's an interesting coincidence about the perihelion and the actual esoteric New Year.
Well, some think that one of the reasons why it said the esoteric New Year or real New Year is 4th of January is partly because of this perihelion phenomenon or occurrence, which is the point in the elliptical orbit of a planet, asteroid or comet, where it is nearest to the Sun. And the Earth comes closest to the Sun every year on the 4th of January, usually. And when not the 4th, it's usually the 3rd, although this year it was actually the 2nd, last night at exactly 10:49 p.m. our time. Our planet came closest to the Sun, the closest it will be until, I think next year is the 4th of January for the perihelion. And also, HPB explains that the 3rd of January was always, well, to quote her words, set apart as the day on which the deities of Olympus visited their worshippers, and was consecrated to Minerva Athena, the goddess of wisdom, and to Isis, she who generates life. And then in the article, "The year is dead, long live the year," she says the third day of every month was sacred to Pallas Athena, the goddess of wisdom. And January the 4th is the day of Mercury, Hermes, or Buddha, who is credited with adding brains to the heads of those who are civil to him. You had a question?
Yes, about the astral life of the Earth. The Earth is a celestial body. Can we think our own freshness and strength of the astral light in the beginning of each day, and the importance of these few minutes we take every beginning of the day, like the wishes we take every beginning of the year, to imprint on the astral, on fresh astral light of our own
life or light, because we
Yes.
said that the astral light isn't
our
really...
own astral life and light, to impress our own astral life and light. The efficiency of those few moments of resolution, like a practical wish of commitment, it is like giving meaning to, I mean, we can continue the wishes for the new year by taking these few moments every day, every new day, and we help the astral light and life of the Earth by empowering and strengthening our own astral life and light, giving the best impressions possible every morning.
Yes, well, we're all part of the whole. There's no separation in humanity or in the universe. And no one can or does live unto himself alone. So every effort made for good by anyone, no matter how significant or insignificant it may seem, adds to the accumulated effect of lifting up, even if it be ever so smallly. That's not a word, is it?
Slightly.
And we become, as Thoreau said, we become closer to the masters of life and the artists.
Mm. Yes. We all help, as William Judge says, to paint a new and better picture on the canvas of the astral light.
Just further on that point, the renewal of the astral life of the Earth, or actually corresponds to a cycle in nature. This is not the
Springtime.
Yeah, the cycle which moves toward the spring, so which begins on the equinox. But is the astral life strong between until Easter? Did you say?
The strongest. Well, that's the exact quote again. The earth passes through its definite phases, and man with it. And as a day can be coloured, so can a year. The astral life of the earth is young and strong between Christmas and Easter. Those who form their wishes now will have added strength to fulfil them consistently.
And also something else, if I cannot, we have to learn how to desire and how to wish. Because sometimes if we don't, if we're not mindful about what is according to the law, we may not deserve well because we haven't learned how to desire well. So it's about adapting ourselves.
Yes, these shouldn't be personal desires or wishes and aims solely for our own benefit, because anything like that, Theosophy says, is selfishness. It was said in the meeting on New Year's resolutions last Sunday that perhaps the greatest and most theosophical resolution one can make at the start of a year is to perpetually practice the paramitas every day. The voice of the silence says to live to benefit mankind is the first step. To practice the 6 glorious virtues is the second, which are, to sum it up briefly, are giving, moral discipline, patience, dispassion, effort, concentration, wisdom. And one who has actually attained real perfection in each one of those is an adept, or a bodhisattva, or a master. Yes.
Do the phases that the Earth goes through have any significance with our dreams, and any like real meaning? When the phase that we go through, will we get real meaning through our dreams about it?
Do you mean the astrological phases?
Yeah, because I feel that when we go through certain retrogrades with planetary, with sacred planets,
Yes.
I feel like I get significant dreams
Mm.
than usual.
Yes.
But I don't know what it means.
Well, Theosophy doesn't say anything specifically on that subject. I mean, actually dealing specifically with that. But certainly some people, or some souls, are more naturally sensitive to the influences of planets or cosmic influences. Some people are affected in various ways at full moon time. Others, even by the entering into a new astrological month, can sort of have a inner sensation of changes of some sort or other going on. And yes, that could influence one's dreams, because the sensitivity is, to a large extent, that type of sensitivity is a psychic sort of sensitivity. And our dreams are, for most of us, on the psychic plane. So there can be a sort of influence like that. But as for the meaning, I think we have to try to analyse it, think about it, maybe record the dreams, compare them with ones from the same time last year or the next year, and try to work out. Because each person has their own inner dream language. We can't interpret anyone's dreams for another. Yeah.
There is a question on Skype.
Can I just add something to what the gentleman said? Sometimes if you look at the natal chart in astrology and see where particular planets are in which house, that can actually make you also more susceptible for certain energies.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you. So there's a question.
So the question on Skype: could we not say that the Kumaras or Manasaputras who first came to humankind were those men who were already evolved and had activated their Manas principle? In turn, they instructed the rest of humanity, who was ready to have this principle activated, and thus became Manasaputras or mind beings.
Well, just before we answer the question directly, do you all understand the role of the Manasaputras or the Kumaras, as was spoken of in the talk? So, the judge reference that was given at the end says that these beings were perfected in a previous earth chain, the previous Manvantara, the previous period of evolution altogether. So they are perfected beings, they're adepts, the Manasaputras. Now, we have these adepts, they are actually what we are. There's an adept alive and kicking in each one of us, hopefully. So I think the question was really asking, are these adepts, or the Manasaputras, when they incarnate in us, they wake up the animal man?
Are they our individual monads?
No, the monad is, as I understand it, the monad is not the Manasaputra. see, the quotation we had from Judge, do you want to read that from the ocean? The Manasaputra actually gives the monad intelligence.
Says, the man in form was not man in mind, and needed the fifth principle, the thinking, perceiving one, to differentiate him from the animal kingdom and to confer the power of becoming self-conscious.
So the monad is...
Can I just finish the
Yes, yes.
quote? The monad was imprisoned in these forms, and that monad is composed of Atma and Buddhi, for without the presence of the monad, evolution could not go forward. So
Page?
that's what we gave as the reference, The Ocean of Theosophy, page 52 to 54.
So everything has the monadic essence in it. I mean, to manifest. I mean, the table, the chair, the floor, that's all monadic essence ensouled in that matter. And it's all on the upward arc. Every part of the earth, every part of the universe is on a journey.
The manas or higher manas is what you could say activates the monad on this plane.
Mm.
It is the way that the monad becomes individualized, as Atma Buddhi being purely spiritual, divine principles, universal in their nature, cannot directly interact with matter in the objective plane or do anything. They are not an individual entity, but the higher manas is the Manasaputra. And so when that incarnates in animal man, which as said was, what, to use an expression HPB uses in the Secret Doctrine Dialogues, it was the man of matter and the nothingness of Buddhi and Atma, nothing in between, to cement the two and make a whole individual, living, intelligent man. Manas was needed as the pivotal point. And yes, we'll get to your question in a moment. The Manasaputras didn't incarnate in some men to then teach the others, although that was something that was going on at around the same time, which you can find in the Secret Doctrine, with the sons of the fire mist, also called the sons of will and yoga. But the Manasaputras incarnated and became the human souls, the souls of humanity, the conscious, reincarnating higher egos. So when we say I, the real I within each of us is one of these Manasaputras. Hopefully that may answer the question from Skype. Yeah.
And just to put it another way, it said that man is the product of three lines of evolution. The monadic, the manasic, and the atmic.
Well, it's the monadic, manasic and physical the Secret Doctrine gives.
But all these aspects come into play in man himself. And this descent or fall, as it's called in the Bible, the rebellion in heaven, the fallen angels, it was really a descent which was necessary karmically to initiate the new phase of human evolution. So it's described as the fall, but that is the wrong way to look at it. But we are those so-called fallen angels, although and that potential is always within us to realize the true human soul, in fact, because it said at this stage we're not truly human. Manas is only partially developed at this stage and has a long way to go yet, and it will not be fully developed until the fifth globe, or the fifth.
Yes, we are the Manasaputras of fallen angels in the sense of falling into matter, not literally falling as in tumbling down, but descending from their high spiritual state and entering what, in comparison, you could say is hell compared with their state. They're described as, some of them, celestial yogis from long past manvantaras. Some of them are called returning nirvanis, and so on. Yes?
Are there exercises that help us to build that strength inside us to make the right choices?
Strength to make the right choices.
To overcome the weaknesses?
Yes. There's nothing, Theosophy doesn't specifically prescribe exercises and say this is what you need to do this. But I think each person, the more they study Theosophy and start to assimilate these concepts and truths, begins to, in one sense, there's a type of change that happens anyway, an inner strengthening. And we also begin to gain increased perception and insight into how to overcome things, how to gain strength. The paramitas are often referred to, we mentioned them earlier, that's something one can remind oneself of every day. And those 7 paramitas encapsulate everything that's needed for strength, to overcome any difficulties, to be the best, to express ourselves as truly spiritual beings. I don't know.
And also we have The Friendly Philosopher by Crosby. He gives daily tips, like advices to help yourself. So he's a really friendly helper for you to understand how to strengthen the practice and find yourself in a better way.
But practically speaking, there are some practices. For example, daily meditation is recommended, and also what's known as the daily review. In other words, a period of reflection over the experiences of the day, objective analysis, which you can do in your meditations, and that identifying your flaws, your weaknesses, and what needs to be changed in yourself. So really, that the work is left up to you, because no one is going to make you do anything. But I think that is probably, meditation is probably the most important practice anyone could do. I mean, as well as the practice of devotion. Because he said actually devotion or meditation is superior to study. Although here we recommend the two go hand in hand. But along with the study must go this devotional aspect, I think.
I'm not sure where is it said that it's superior to study.
It's in the Gita actually. The man of meditation is superior to the man of knowledge.
Do you also, Krishna is always praising, or he puts everything above everything else numerous different times.
The man of knowledge is superior to the man of penance, and so on.
Or we could add, the man of self-knowledge is superior. Because you've got knowledge, and meditation is supposed to help you understand yourself and the whole. So it comes to this, ultimately, to know thyself.
In the studies in the Voice of the Silence, B.P. Wadia recommends that daily review meditation be self-examination in the light of the paramitas that we mentioned. So reviewing one's actions and thoughts, and feelings and words of the day in the light of those paramitas, in the light of the higher self, and thinking, did I properly live up to these golden virtues today? Did I fail in this regard? And then there's the inner commitment to make the necessary adjustment for the next day and to keep on and keep on, without self-condemnation, but still being honest with ourselves as to where we've fallen short and where we can improve. Okay, so you had a question?
Yeah, so it's just, if one meditates, could it would bring like the issues of the day, the review that he needs to have, and if you focus on these things during meditation, would you be able to grow? And like, that's what it's so by reviewing your day and meditating on it, and focusing on the things you need to improve on. And
Yeah, I mean, it's not very difficult actually, because when you sit down to meditate, you get very little peace and quiet. You know, you get all the aggro and all the nonsense that you've been through coming up and taking your mind away. I mean, Judge writes about that very nicely. He calls them, it's like a troop of horses come through your mind, and you know, your meditation is gone. So we don't have to look very far for the hindrances. I think really the trick is to try to get behind what was the initiating thought or motive that caused, you know, a disagreement with someone, or caused you to feel a bit angry or frustrated or whatever it happens to be. And then trace that back. You see, because everything, there's a concatenation of causes, and in Nidana it's called. And you really, that's really the value of the daily review, is you try and peel back things to get at the underlying problem, because the problems are not other people's problems.
That's reversing the domino effect of why things happen.
That's it, exactly. Well put, yeah. And it's our anger or frustration or desire or ambition or crankiness or whatever it happens to be that causes the problem. It's not other people, because they're just like a karmic agent, and they'll trip your trigger when you need it tripped. And that's part of the... I mean, the great thing with the study, like a group we've got here, is that we all bounce off each other and amuse each other or irritate each other, and then we can learn, because this sort of situation where you come into a group of committed students is like a hothouse, and it brings out the best, brings out the worst. And those are the times when you can really begin to see yourself. So that's very helpful. It's much easier doing it in a group than by yourself, because you get that sort of extra unspoken energy that then makes all the seeds come up, and for other people's mistakes, because we always like to think that other people have got the mistakes and we're okay. And of course that's actually the lower mind turning everything upside down. So we have to have a great deal of compassion and tolerance, self-restraint. You know, it's said that the Stoics used to train themselves by what was called voluntary discomfort, taking voluntary discomfort on themselves. Because in that way, it's like the fireman who goes to train himself to be a good fireman, and when the fire comes, he's really keen to get on and put the fire out. He's not going to run away from the fire.
Yeah.
Because that's what he wants to do, it's what he's been training himself for, and he's quite happy to have adverse circumstances come to him. Whereas the untrained person, a bit of adversity and they run a mile. You know, they don't want to know about it. And that, of course, is hopeless, because you lose the whole opportunity to examine the great experience that life's given you.
Thank you. Chris had a question, and that will be our last question.
I just wanted to make a quick comment regarding the gentleman's question in the back about how to deal with facing weaknesses. And I think that the most valuable step, the way I understand it, which could be wrong, but to get the real results, I think, is first of all not identifying with the body and trying to identify our true nature, and then I think we won't see it as our weaknesses.
Yes. Yes, thank you. Yes, the weaknesses are not in the true self, but in what the Hindus call the not self. the temporary personality. Of course, they need to be eradicated, and what you suggested is certainly a good way of doing that. The next meeting here will be on Wednesday. We have meetings every Wednesday evening and Sunday evening, both starting at 7 o'clock. The Wednesday meetings are, in the first part of the meeting, a study group format where we read and discuss and study the Tao Te King, Lao Tzu's famous scripture, and The Secret Doctrine by H.P. Blavatsky, which is her main and most well-known work. And then there's a short break, and then the second part of the meeting from around 8:45 or 8:50 until around 9:50 or 9:45 is the book that was mentioned, The Friendly Philosopher, which is a compilation of letters by Robert Crosby, who was the founder of the ULT. And then we sit at the table at the back and discuss and derive benefit from those. The Sunday meetings, the first and the third Sunday of the month, are always a talk like this, and the other Sundays are reading and discussion meetings where we sit in a circle like last Sunday and take it in turns to read through an article and ask questions and so on. So that's the format for next Sunday, 10th of January. The title is On Reincarnation, and this will be a compilation also from Robert Crosby from the book Answers to Questions on the Ocean of Theosophy. And the summary says, all matter is evolving, and man's development is most reasonably explained by a long series of rebirths. So everyone is always invited to every meeting. Were you about?
It's not next Wednesday, the content.
Yes.
Supervises.
Thank you.
Yes, in this coming Wednesday meeting, in the part where we would do the Secret Doctrine, we're going to be looking at and reading through the contents listing of her first book, Isis Unveiled, to see what light can be derived from that. And then after that we'll go to the contents of the Secret Doctrine and then return back to the regular course of our study in the Secret Doctrine. The new programs for January to March are now available, so if you don't have one, please help yourself, the table at the back or downstairs. And to close, this is from William Judge's article, Two Lost Keys, the Bhagavad Gita, the Zodiac. Man is himself a zodiacal highway through which his own particular sun makes a circuit. As our acquaintance through devotion and endeavour with the journey of our own sun through our own human zodiac grows better, we will learn the meaning of the great pilgrimage of the earthly luminary. For it is impossible in this study to learn a little of ourselves without knowing more of the great system of which we are a copy. For Atman is the sun, the moon also it is, and the whole collection of stars is contained within it.